Okay, so let's do a care sheet video on how to care for slings. But first of all, you might be asking, what are slings? Slings are baby tarantulas. They're at least 1/8 of an inch to about 1.5 inches. So I'll give you an idea of what a spiderling looks like. This is my Sericosmus Perez Millesi, Bolivian dwarf. He's about 1/6 of an inch. Really small. Here's another sling. Gramasola rosea, red color form, 1/2 inch. This is my Vkalira Spiderlings, 1.5 inches. So you get the idea. And finally, my Lacidora parahybana. It's about 2 inches. What's the perks and the negatives of buying a sling? Well, slings are very cheap. For example, my Vkalira metallica, the Goody Sapphire ornamental, it's probably hard to see. Well, I paid her about $200 when she was about 1 inch, but now she's probably worth over $300, $400. So that's one perk. And the second perk is that you can watch it grow. So as an example, my Tabanakinius gigas, which was 1/4 of an inch, 2 years, and look at that size. He's a mature male. The disadvantages are the growth rate. You do have to do some research on them. You can have some that are really fast growing, some that are really slow growing. Like for example, Caresheet, which is the king baboon. If you buy a 1-inch sling for about $50, it's going to take 10 years before it'll get to an adult size of 9 inches. And for people, 10 years is a long time, so they might ask themselves, will they still be in the hobby in the next 10 years from now? So I'm going to list some websites on the video description on how I know where to get them. The beginners are slow growers, so your best bet is to get them 1.5 inches or bigger. And of course, the prey items. You have to give them really small items. So I would either give them pinhead crickets, which are the baby ones, the new hatchlings, or you would give them fruit flies. Okay, so the first part is how to house them. Well, they're pretty simple. You have to give them the smallest enclosure possible that you can find. So pill jars are fine for them. So this houses my 1/6 of an inch Perez Millesi. Then you can go for slightly larger pill jars. Which houses your terrestrial species like Gramasola rosea, red color form. And then if you want to go larger, for about inch terrestrials, you can house them in deli containers with air holes. This is my 2-inch Cyclosternum fasciatum, the Costa Rican tiger rump. And yeah, she's just taking off. And yeah, that's the mold from my parahybana sling. It covers the housing for terrestrials. Arboreals are a bit kind of different, but they're pretty much the same. You want to give them tall pill jars, such as this, for my, it's hard to see, but my Vkalira petersoni, the ghost ornamental. And this one right here. They're taller, but they're good because these are good for arboreals. And there's my Vkalira Spiderlings. So for larger slings, you can house them in spice jars. So this houses my lovely Stromatopelma calceatum, the feather-leg baboon. I come to realize that when I collected slings, they like to burrow more often than when they are adults. So it's best to give them a little bit more substrate in there so they can burrow. For phosphoral spiderlings, which is the ground-dwelling ones, the pet holes, it's best to give them a lot of substrate in here. So this is my Chilobrachys fimbriatus seen in violet, and you can see the elaborate tunnels that she makes. That's pretty much how to house them. It's very important to drill air holes into the enclosure. Cannot stress this enough. Tarantulas do need to breathe, so make some holes that are just slightly smaller than the tarantula, because if you make them too large, they may crawl out and escape, as that happened already before with one of my Grammosola pole-striped spiderlings. So I just put them on the top. Now for Vkalira Spiderlings, these are, part of my language, a bitch to care for. Seriously. So what you need to do is maybe drill part of the lid off and maybe attach a guard mesh and just glue it. So that way it has some ventilation, because Vkalarias thrive on high heat and high humidity, but they also need a lot of ventilation to survive. I think that's what happened with my Fasculata, my avic death. I'm not getting stings anymore. I only buy sub-adults to adults and late juvies. Substrate you can use is just pretty much cocoa fiber or potting soil mixed in with vermiculite. Slings that are 1.5 to 2 inches. You know, you can get those candy jars, plastic containers that you get from the grocery store. Just plug some air holes, fill it up with substrate with vermiculite, and there you have it. And just add some piece of decoration. This is my Pocotheria Miranda container. Dobo 1005 wanted me to give an update video, but she's hiding, and oh, she's right there, but I'm not going to open the cage because these are pretty defensive tarantulas. So our burrow is just like it, taller than wider. So here's another enclosure that you can house typical spiderling. This houses my 2-inch pea poker, Panama Blonde. So it just has some substrate here, water dish, and a little cave. You can see it's just 2 pieces of bark that are just concave together, and she just likes it here. This type of enclosure, I got this from the dollar store. It's just a air sealant. I just plug holes, drill some holes in here. Serves as an excellent arboreal tank. Sweet. Now about watering tarantulas. Spiderlings that are about 1/6 of an inch, about 1/2 of an inch, cannot drink out of a water bowl. It just simply doesn't work. So what I do is to water the substrate. So to do that, I take an eyedropper. This one's kind of melted a bit. Take some water, pour some water in here, and just really. That's pretty much it. Just water the substrate. That's all you need for water and consequently humidity. Now about heat sources. I repeat, do not use any form of heat mat on a spiderling, or probably any tarantula for that matter. Why? Because tarantulas are really cold-blooded animals, so they can react really badly to cold and or heat. They're more susceptible to heat, so they can probably die off. And if they're subject to cold, they probably won't be as active much, and it'll just be slightly dormant. So what I just use is keep a warm room, and that's all you need. It's about 82 degrees Fahrenheit in here. That's all you need for heat. Tarantulas don't need any light, so you really want to stay away from light source sunlight, because they're pretty dangerous for a tarantula, and they can get really stressed if they're exposed to sunlight. So best bet is to keep them away from sunlight, and they'll be happy. About feeding her slings, well, they can be really difficult because, you know, they require a lot smaller prey than their adult counterparts. So how I feed my 1/6 of an inch C. Perez Melesi, all I do is take a cricket and just crush it up and just leave it in the tank, and actually she ate it, which is really cool. It's about 1/2 an inch. Could take pinheads or just slightly juvie crickets in here. This thing's about this size. Well, I give it near adult crickets, and they just go crazy over them. So I think I pretty much covered everything you need to know about spiderling care. So hope you enjoyed this video and hope you learned something. Alright, peace guys.